Please welcome both presenters. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Buenos dias. Thank you so much, Professor Polger and Professor Pathak for being part of this presentation. And I know Nelson is behind the scenes, so thank you so much, Professor Santana, for organizing this LACUNY Institute and for inviting us to be part of this. So we're going to have an interactive presentation today. And Jhensen, say hello to everybody, please.
Good morning, everyone. Jhensen, Ortíz. I'm really grateful for the folks that are here. I see some familiar faces and names. Professor Nelson Santana again thank you so much for the invitation.
Exactly. So, all right. So let's go into this. We are going to talk to you about the Dominican Studies Institute, Archives and Library, and the resources that we have available, especially the open source educational resources, and how you can use them, how you can share them with your students and staff and whoever is interested in learning more about Dominicans. And Jhensen, if you can please share your screen, that would be beautiful. And yes, Professor Sanchez Rodriguez is saying hello to you as well. Okay, so this is the presentation that we prepare. As I said, it's going to be interactive. It's going to be more of a way of us learning from each other. And if you go to the next slide, please, Jhensen. Okay, so who we are at the CUNY Dominican Studies Institute. The Institute was founded in 1992, and because of the community, because of the Dominican community, it was a Dominican Council educators together with African Americans, together with Puerto Rican scholars. They went to CUNY and they said, we do have other institutions that deal with different ethnic groups. We need to have a Dominican Studies Institute. Because people were, still today, we do have that, but during those years, if you read the New York Times, when they talk about Dominicans on their first page or the New York Post, always talking about Dominicans related to violence and drug use and issues, problems within the community. Never trying to highlight the positive about Dominicans. So the Dominican Institute was created for that, to make sure that we have a sound place or with a sound historical and social and statistical information about Dominicans in the United States and whenever we are. We have three main components: the research area, which is on the separate space within City College, and is where Dr. Ramona Hernandez, who is the current director of the Dominican Institute and one of the founding members, her office is there. And then we have the library and the archives on the second floor. And this is for you to come and visit us if you have not been there. We would love to have you to showcase what we can do together, collaborate with other institutions throughout CUNY. We do collaborate with the Center for Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College, with the Institute for Mexican Studies at Lehman College, and the Haitian Studies Institute at Brooklyn College, among many others. Jhensen, do you want to add something about this slide?
Well, also that we have an internship program that some of the students that you see pictured here come throughout the summer and also during the spring and fall semester to work with us in the library and the archives. And so this is something that's been ongoing these last couple of years, and they really make part of the team and the work that we do really successful.
Thank you for mentioning that, because sometimes when you see photos like this, you think, oh, these people are not real. Or they were taken from other places. No, these were researchers, and many of them from our interns coming throughout the summer. We have a very robust research summer institute, let's call it like that, a program. And we have students coming from all over the United States and even from the Dominican Republic and from other places. We have 2 students last year coming from France, so we have them all. And the photo next to that is from one of our archival collections. And Jhensen, you want to talk a little bit about that photo?
Yeah, so this is a photo from the Normandia Maldonado collection, and you see there's a banner in front of the statue which says Club Cívico Cultural Dominicano. It's kind of hard to read, but basically this is one of the early civic organizations that was founded in New York City by Dominicans who settled in the city in the early 1960s. They're commemorating the birthday of Juan Pablo Duarte, who's one of the founding fathers of the Dominican Republic. This statue is located in the on Canal Street in the Avenue of the Americas. It's just called Duarte Square. The statue was erected in 1972 with the help of the Dominican government, but also due to the work that was done on the ground by organizations like Club Cívico Cultural Dominicano Juan Pablo Duarte, which really commemorates and tries to disseminate the history and the teachings of Juan Pablo Duarte to the folks in the Dominican community in New York City. And this is the work they've been doing for decades. And this is just one of many photographs that we have commemorating the birthday of Juan Pablo Duarte in the Normandia Maldonado collection and also in other collections we have in the archives.
And you might be asking this question, why do we have a statue dedicated to a Dominican important person downtown in Chinatown? Well, let me tell you, this Dominican organization was trying to make sure that this statue was next to Simon Bolivar and in 59th Street in the Central Park area. But the government said there's no more space for more statues. Do you think this group of Dominicans say, oh, I'm so sorry that stop there? They said, well, we have the money, we have acquired the money from the government of the Dominican Republic to do this, so let's find a place for us. And this is why this statue is downtown. And many of these, the majority of these Dominican activists were not people that went to college. They didn't know much English. They were factory workers, many of them in these 70s and 80s years. But they believed in making sure that others understood Dominicans in all of the complexities of the Dominican population in the United States. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But please, if you have a question, this is not a presentation that we are going to be talking. We want you to also ask questions throughout the presentation, right? Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And we talked about this. We organized a very a transnational event. Was it last year, Jhensen, or the year?
It was last
week. I'm sorry, last week.
May 2nd.
Exactly. And we talked about the importance of digital humanities within Dominican studies, and not only Dominican studies, but Caribbean studies. And we invited to our panel, there were Cubans, Puerto Rican, Haitian, and Dominican librarians and archivists and scholars. So talking about the importance of putting together these digital humanities, sources available for everyone. And mainly is to improve preservation and increase accessibility and greater accessibility, right? Jhensen, do you have anything to add about this?
Well, I think it sort of sets the tone for the workshop that we're doing today, because for us, digital humanities and also learning from other colleagues at different institutions really gives us an idea where we want to take the research projects further in terms of creating digital collections and creating interactive websites where we could disseminate a lot of the research that's being produced at the Institute. I thought also that we were able to see what tools are not working for us from some of the presentations that were given last week, and then also see where we could maybe collaborate with some of the partners that were present last week. And I think for us it's critical that we continue to innovate in this particular area, because not everyone could come and make it in person to view our materials in the archives or use the books and other materials in the library. So that was the biggest takeaway from the conversations we were having last week, and now coming in to this discussion when we're presenting some of the resources that we have available.
And we do have originals of these archival and primary sources within our archives or in the library, in the special collection section. But we also want to make sure that people throughout the world have access to this information and these materials, and they can use them in their classrooms. They can when they are talking about Dominicans in many different aspects, they can refer to these databases, websites, and collections. Okay. So we're going to talk about the past, okay, and the importance of the past in understanding our present and building our future. We put together a seminal project that is called First Blacks in the Americas. And I know that you might be tired of hearing about this if you have been in one of our presentations or if you come and visit us, but we're never going to get tired of mentioning this project. It's a completely bilingual Spanish and English project dedicated to the 16th and 17th century of Santo Domingo, La Española, Hispaniola, that it is now the Dominican Republic and Haiti. It was not divided during those periods. And this website, thank you so much, Nelson. You see there, Nelson used to work with us, by the way. Professor Santana was a librarian at the Dominican Studies Institute. And we're so proud of all the amazing work that he is doing. So this website has 71 packages of documents, archival documents related to those periods. And why do we talk about First Blacks? One of the reasons that we put together this website, and it was, of course, it came out from the beautiful mind of our former assistant director, Anthony Stevens Acevedo, who is a colonial historian. He's now retired. And what Anthony and all of us wanted to do was to make sure people, researchers, everyone have access to these archival sources, and they could go to the source. No interpretations of the source, but the source. And talking about Dominicans and Blackness. If you have heard about Dominicans and Blackness, perhaps you have heard that Dominicans don't want to be Black, or we're anti-Haitians, or we don't even want to mention that we're Black. Well, not all of us. And this is why this website exists. Because Blackness began in the Americas in that space. Because it was during that time that the first Black people, African Black people, arrived. And we're going to talk about that in the other slides. Yes, and you have something to add? Or okay, let's go there. Okay. So we have a question for you. Jhensen, can you do this?
Sure. So can anyone guess the year that the first free Black men arrived in the Americas?
And what do we mean by the Americas? We're also including the United States in there, right? So can you guess the year? And those who know, no hagan trampa, okay? Do know. I mean, just guess. You can use the chat. You can unmute yourselves. 1503. Isabel, bravo, Isabel. Por ahí está cerquita. Muy bien.
1613.
Which one?
1613. 1613.
Ah, that was Juan Rodriguez. Te está adelantando.
Oh, my. I tried.
Good. Okay, so let's tell you when. Ta-da, Jhensen. Can you please click? 1492. And people don't know about this because they think that only Europeans with Christopher Columbus arrived in this is Isabel, she's Dominican, she should know. That's why you're here, sweetie, so we can share this information with you and you can share this with others. So 1492, that year, you always imagine Christopher Columbus and native Taínos. That's it, right? But let me tell you that three Black men, Juan Prieto or Juan Moreno, came with Christopher Columbus. And he was a free Black man. Again, we are here trying to challenge that notion that all Black people during those years were enslaved people. Not necessarily. This man was a servant, but he was free. And he was paid by his services. And what else do we know, Jhensen?
We also know that he was someone who later on, after no longer serving Christopher Columbus, he leaves the island of Hispaniola. He reemerges in Peru as a slave owner, according to the manuscripts we found. So it's a complicated history, and this is just one example of many that we've been able to uncover.
Yes, understanding and digging and looking into Dominican history, we can find, and many other histories, we can find so much complexities within this. It's not just black and white, but it's much more than that. And we need to understand that to understand Dominicans in all our complexities. How are you able to read these documents? Thank you, Professor Sanchez Rodriguez, for this question. And we're going to be talking about this in another slide that we have prepared. How, because the thing is that we are not just putting that document there. We're also, Anthony and the team that worked with him, transcribed this document, translated this document into English, and then wrote a commentary related to this document. And then in another section, we have like different themes that we connect different manuscripts. So you can contextualize this information using it in other contexts. So this, we're going to talk about that later. But look at the document, how complicated it looks. Like only paleographers know how to decipher this, but we're going to tell you how you can do this. If you dedicate a year plus, and if you know basic Spanish, right? Yes, it was a very detailed work. We spent years working on this. And this project was done with local monies. We didn't have a grant to put this project together. We have a lot of dedication and a lot of upcoming and seasoned scholars working together. We even have high school students helping us with this. And the names of these scholars and people are there because we understand that when you begin early, you develop and then you have a sound base for you to go to other levels in your education, right? So the other slide, Jhensen. So the other important manuscript that we're going to find among these 71, all of them for me are important, but we chose these two because of time. And this is about the first Black Slaves Rebellion in the Americas. And it happened to be in 1521. 2 years ago, we commemorated this. We organized an international virtual conference dedicated to this and how it might affect it and how people don't know about this and the importance of understanding this history. Jhensen?
So we wanted to pose the question, have you heard the term maroonage or cimarronaje? We wanted to allow you to share with us how do you define it today or apply it in different ways, the term today.
We want to hear from you. Maroon is partial black and white. That might be a ¿cómo se dice? Mestizo, no? What you're talking about, or yeah. But Isabel, you want to, yeah, please share.
Yes, I hear it and I see that it's a very inspiring concept these days because, so for the people that don't know, and please correct me, you and your co-presenter Jhensen, because you're so knowledgeable. If I say anything wrong, please correct me, and I'm sure you will. The communities of people that were enslaved, that went, that escaped and created communities far away from where the centers of the colonists were. So in the Dominican Republic, my understanding is that in the interior where there's a lot of hills and, the people could create communities that were far away from the ports, communities of free Black people. And sometimes it was in line with also the native Tainos that also were doing the same thing. And this didn't just happen in Dominican Republic, but it happened throughout the Caribbean and other parts of Latin America.
Excelente, Isabel. Mejor
Correct,
de ahí
yeah.
se daña. Excellent.
Thank you for sharing.
Exactly. So yes, it's running away from slavery, from being colonized, being imposed, even in religion, social, all of that. It's like, no, I have my own culture, I have my own life, and I want to continue living it. So this happened throughout Latin America and the Caribbean during those years. So what happens is that a group of Black men, especially Black men, we haven't found a woman yet, but hopefully we could find one later on. But according to the document, and this we know of this because the Spanish crown was so upset about this that they have to write laws. If you do this, you're going to get caught part of your finger. If you do this, you're going to get hit with how many how do you call that, latigazos. So all of that,
Whiplashes, yeah.
Yes, they did this because of this rebellion. And it was an organized rebellion, and we were nominated for an Emmy. We forgot to tell you that for a short version of an animation that we did based on this rebellion. So we can share that with you later on. But this document talks about those laws and how this in January 1522, that was after the celebration of the Christmas. It was in look at the date, December 25th, 1521. These Black men, enslaved men during that time, were watching these Spaniards and Europeans getting drunk and celebrating Christmas. So they took advantage of that. And they went and they tried to rebel. Jhensen, you have something to add about this?
Yes, the colonial ordinances that are mentioned here in the 1522 laws as a reaction and sort of in a way a reaction to what happened with the rebellion in 1525, but also it really sets the tone for how the Spanish really insert more of their injustices on the Black population and those that are now trying to escape. And for us, this was an important document, but also later on, we start seeing cases where these abuses take place due to the 1522 laws being imposed on the population, the enslaved population, and how there now needs to be more coordinated rebellions in organizing amongst the Black enslaved population to deal with the consequences of what happened.
And do you think these Black enslaved men, and also there were also native Tainos within these people, do you think they stopped being maroons because of these laws? What do you think? That they stayed enslaved and they followed all the rules imposed by the crown? Or what happened to these populations? I want to hear from you. Yes, Lane Gleason?
I have a question about that, because I know that in Jamaica there are existing communities that are descendants of the Maroons. I think there's like 4 communities, and I wondered in the Dominican Republic also, did they stay possibly, manage their independence, and there are descendants today who still exist? That's my question.
Lane, I think it's all mixed. Like we cannot pinpoint to this Cimarron community, but everybody's so mixed already in the Dominican Republic that we cannot pinpoint to that. But I know that we have some scholars that they go to the mountains, and still today we have populations there or communities there that you can see the way they eat, the way they dance, more into the Maroon and the African like descendant, and also the Taino one, even though people don't believe in that. But we do have, there is Ilka Mateo. She is a singer and a researcher, and she has been in those communities, and she sees like how people react and in their daily lives, and she documented that. And that's a very fascinating way of seeing it. But no, like, oh, this is a Cimarron community. No, we don't have that in the Dominican Republic.
But does that mean that they stayed, possibly did manage to stay? Some people stayed independent and didn't get stopped from
Oh yeah,
the community?
totally. Many of these population left the mountains, stayed there, and didn't go back to slavery. Yeah. Jhensen, you wanted to add something?
I was just going to mention another source. There's a documentary called Cimarron in Spirit that was produced by cultural anthropologist Rachel Quinn. She's at the University of Houston, and it's a great sort of background on the Cimarron sort of ancestry and traces of what it's still being found in the Dominican Republic today.
And Rachel Quinn is now at Schomburg. She is a
she's on sabbatical, right?
sabbatical, yeah.
Yeah,
And we're
she's
going
at the
to-
Schomburg Center.
All right. So next, I think it talks about that, Jhensen. If you, did not stop the open resistance by enslaved blacks. Exactly. Like Nilda said, they continue fighting for their independence and rights. Okay, so let's go to the other slide. So now let's talk to you about how you can read these documents. We are not selfish. We want everybody to learn. Anthony wanted, when Anthony Stevens Acevedo, when he organized this website, he wanted to democratize knowledge. And what do we mean by that? He noticed that only people in the PhD, at the PhD level, or distinguished scholars, or people with resources were able to become paleographers, learn to decipher these documents. And Anthony said, why? Everyone should have access to this, even high school students, that they understand their past reading these documents. So this is the paleography tool, Spanish paleography tool. And if Jhensen, we can put in the chat, is that okay? Or you want me to do it?
No, I got it. I could share the link with folks.
Exactly. So if you go to this website, you can read the manuscripts line by line. It teaches you. Now, you need to have a basic Spanish. That's the only thing. And the beauty about the Spanish paleography tool is that you can use it not only for Dominican colonial documents, but you can use it for Mexican colonial documents, Peruvian colonial documents, Cuban, Puerto Rican, all of Latin America and the Caribbean, Spanish Caribbean. Why? Because this tool is organized with 4 different distinct way of writing during those years that was used throughout. So if you learn here, you can go back to your own histories or other histories and learn how to decipher. You're welcome to peruse. It's a free open source. This one, we got a little grant from NEH, and we were able to hire a company to help us in that. I know that nowadays people are talking about OCR and how you can do this even better, but during that time, this was a very important source, and still today is used throughout the world. Right? Thank you, Lane. So it is in there. Please use it. Come back to us if you have any questions. We would love to share any more information. So the next slide is, Spanish language like Dominican speak or Spain. No, it's Spanish language like the 16th century one. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is the 1613 that Nilda was talking to you about. And this happened to be the first non-recorded Dominican that arrived in the United States. It was not even New York City. What was who used to live in this area in 1613? Who can tell us? What population lived in what is the Dutch? Before the Dutch. 1613. Who lived here? Who owned? Yes, thank you. Native Americans. Excelente. The Lenape. Yes, thank you so much. So what about if I tell you that a black free man came on board a Dutch ship that was, that was very common during those years. These people who wanted to colonize, they went to the different islands, and they hired different black people, because if you were black but you were free, you like knew how to speak many languages, sometimes knew how to handle different things. So Juan Rodriguez was picked up in La Española and brought to what is today New York. And why do we say he is the first immigrant? Because he was the first known person that lived by himself with the Lenape. Why? Because that captain went back to Holland, and Juan Rodriguez decided to stay. And that makes him the first immigrant in the city of New York. So again, we're challenging the concept of Dominicans as new immigrants. We have been here for a long time, even before the other populations. But people don't know about this, because when you read about Juan Rodriguez, you read about only the part that black, and people thought that he was from Africa directly, and that he was not part of the Dominican population. Jhensen, you want to add something about this?
Yes, folks mentioning that he was from Africa. A lot of the early literature also referred to him as Juan Rodriguez, and it's spelled with a S, as having some Portuguese ancestry. And so his history has been sort of shared in his story, in his arrival to New York City, has been shared throughout the decades from different scholars having their own interpretations of his significance and presence in the city. So for us to find those particular Dutch documents making reference to his arrival from Santo Domingo during this colonial period, I think was really significant. That it really only adds to this story.
And why are we talking about this? Because we said open source. This is already an open source. This document has all these 17th century manuscripts that were found in Holland. We hired a scholar from there, and he transcribed and translated these documents. And then we hired also a Spanish Dutch specialist, and she translated this into Spanish. So all these documents are in our web. We're going to show you how you can get into this, so you can showcase this to your students or to others who, and then again, for these anti-immigrant concepts and notions that we hear again and again, we go to these people and say, how can you be like this if the first immigrant was a black man, a free black man from Santo Domingo, from La Española? It was not even the Dominican Republic yet, but it was La Española, Santo Domingo. And yes, how can we access the research of your website? Beautiful. Okay. So we are going to put that information in the chat in a moment. Okay. So you can access this monograph, which is, it has a very detailed bibliography, and then it has the documents, right? So let's go to the other slide. Meanwhile, we'll look for that link. Okay, so this is another newish
Yes, it's one of our most recent digital projects that was unveiled during the pandemic and in the fall of 2021. The proposed Dominican Historic District really tries to show an interactive map that documents the historical and cultural contributions of Dominicans, primarily in Washington Heights. This project was done in collaboration with folks in the community whom we reached out to identify some of the cultural landmarks that were no longer visible in the community. And really for us, it's visualizing data and information in a way that really puts into context the space and place of folks in the community and all of the historical experiences that have been documented there. I'm going to share the link to the interactive map on the chat. We wanted you to answer these questions for us on how do you, what and who are behind the names of street parks and institutions in your own neighborhood, and what ways can we work towards continuing these histories and legacies. Primarily, we would love to hear from you how you see this sort of work being done in your own communities.
What about when you see the streets code name with people that you perhaps say, who are these people? Or a park, or yeah. Yes, Isabel.
Okay, so I am from New York. I am from Sunset Park, and I just imagined that the name of Sunset Park was because there are beautiful sunsets in Sunset Park. So I think, you know, my beautiful family in Sunset Park needs to be careful because some other folks are going to want to gentrify it, and they're already doing that. But it's still pretty Latin, so it's still pretty good. But right now I live in a place with a horrible name. Amherst is named after Jeffrey Amherst, and he is known for being a military person who was promoting the use of putting I think smallpox infested blankets to give to the native people. And so a lot of us here want to change the name, and it's really hard, but we're not giving up.
Thank you. Thank you for not giving up, Isabel, because this is what we're trying to do here. Trying to make sure that these spaces that are historic are not forgotten. We know that New York City changes a lot of influx of different immigrants coming and going, but these spaces have been spaces for Dominicans for many decades. I want to make sure this is preserved. So if you go to the map, if someone goes to the map, please. I live near Celia Cruz Way. Wow, okay, muy bien. Exactly, you see it. There you go, in the Bronx. And you know that Juan Rodriguez, we were able to co-name that Broadway, co-name Broadway. The first time that Broadway Avenue was co-named with Juan Rodriguez Way. We didn't take away Broadway, but we just put the name of Juan Rodriguez underneath. And this is in the Washington Heights area that the majority of Dominicans used to live, because now the majority of Dominicans live in the Bronx. But these places are historic. So if any one of you want to go to the map, and then we have a question to ask, can you go and find the little boats that you see? If you find one of those little boats and then go and then tell us a little bit about a family that you might find, of a people that you might find that came through Ellis Island, because that's another thing. People don't connect Dominicans with Ellis Island. And not only Dominicans, but people from Trinidad, from Jamaica, from different parts of the Caribbean and Latin America came through Ellis Island. But when we read in the history books that are given to our kids, we just see immigrants from Europe and white people. We want to change that. We want to make sure that also our faces are inserted in there, because they came through Ellis Island. More than 5,000 Dominicans came through Ellis Island. And this is a research conducted by Dr. Ramon Hernandez, our associate, our director. So who wants to share something that found in the map? We are working on the interactivity of the map. Oh, Imelda, okay. Mary Meunier came through Ellis, 1922, exactly. She was a dressmaker. 1923, a Dominican coming from the Dominican Republic, establishing herself here, dressmaker. Many of these Dominicans came with some money. Many of these Dominicans built spaces here and they owned businesses. Why don't we know about them? So this is what we were trying to do. Yeah, Jhensen?
Yes, adding to this, the research on Dominicans arriving through Ellis Island, a lot of them were also students coming here at really at particular ages, usually roughly from 18 to 25 years old, looking for new opportunities in the city, and also living amongst other Caribbean folks in different parts of the city, not just in Washington Heights. We found folks settling in parts of the Lower East Side and in Spanish Harlem. So this is something that's ongoing. We're also working on genealogical sort of family trees to trace generations of Dominican families that could trace their ancestry or roots coming through Ellis Island. So that's something that's also really fascinating to see how those folks have been sort of keeping their family history alive and also adding to the work that we're doing.
And we are now proposing this project, and we want to be recognized as a historic district neighborhood. And this is going to be the first time a Latinx community is going to do that, because you know about El Barrio, that is the Puerto Rican community, never did this. So we hope that when we have ours, then other groups are going to ask to be recognized historically, right? Okay, so next slide, because we don't have much time. Dominicans also fighting in World War II, and I guess that you didn't know this, but more than 300 Dominicans fought during World War II, served during World War II. And we had a project. If we go to the other slide, Jhensen, let's talk about Stephen Ortíz very quickly. Jhensen?
So Stephen Ortíz was the first that we know of Dominicans who served in the Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen were their first Black military group, group of pilots to serve in the U.S. Armed Forces during World War II. And what was significant about his service was also his commitment to combating Jim Crow segregation and racial discrimination during this period. And for us, having a Dominican go through this experience and also fight against it while he was stationed in the Midwest was important. We document his involvement with the Tuskegee Airmen and also the mutiny that was called the Freeman Field Mutiny, which is the event that happened where he was arrested alongside 100 of his fellow Tuskegee Airmen officers for disobeying orders that were given to them by their white general officer at the time. And so for us, again, having this particular panel on Stephen Ortíz and his service and his activism, I thought it was important, connecting those experiences also to what's currently happening today with the fight against racial discrimination and prejudice in the U.S.
Yes, and Jhensen says something there in Professor Santana about, yes, these mural with all the names of these veterans are in the Brooks Community College. So it's a beautiful campus. Go and visit and please pay tribute to this as well. So you see, Stephen Ortíz knew he was Black and he was okay with that. And let's go to the other slide. Then we have Adrián Trujillo, happened to be a ¿cómo se llama? A
nephew.
Nephew, yeah, pero postizo.
Yes, adopted nephew of dictator Rafael Trujillo.
Exactly.
And he was honorably discharged in 1946. While he was in Florida, he stopped by this cafe called Green Tile Cafe. It was a whites-only diner, and he was confronted by the owner because of his color of his skin, telling him he needed to leave. He was reluctant and did not want to leave the diner. He said, I am a veteran of the U.S. armed forces. I just fought in World War II. What's going on? I'm not Black. I'm Dominican. And I should be allowed service here. An altercation happened between him and the owner at this cafe. They call the cops. Jose Adrian refuses to leave, and he was killed at the diner for not leaving the diner. So this encounter really puts in perspective for us sort of these differences that happen between these two groups, between these two men in the U.S. and how race is really sort of confined or.
And then you see, and then I told you that Stephen Ortíz was okay with his, he understood that he was a Black Dominican, he was okay with that, he interacted with the Black population, but then Adrian Trujillo said, no, I'm not Black. Don't take me for that for that group. And then we see the complexities of the Dominican population even during those years. And if we go to the other slide, Jhensen, we have a quick question that talks about that, about how does the study of Jose Adrian Trujillo and Ortíz as member of the Tuskegee Airmen relate to the challenges Dominica confront today when navigating Black and white racial constructs in the US. And this is a question that you can analyze by yourself. You can come back to us. We don't have much time to talk about this, but we just wanted you to see the complexity of the Dominican population. Don't call Dominicans bachateros or merengueros or baseball players only. We're much more than that. So that's why we are trying to put together this information. All of this, if you go to the other slide, Jhensen, is available open source. Is in the, thank you, Jhensen, is in JSTOR forum and also in our Nomeka site, both. So you can get there, but also we have educational resources related to this. It's not only putting the information there and that's it, but educational resources for teachers and educators to use this in their classes. We also have a history of Dominican music. We have not much time, Jhensen, to go into the website, but we can put this in the chat, the information there, and you can quickly talk about this.
Yeah, so the site delves into these 100 years of Dominican music, and the sections are broken up to the history, locations, there's musical genre guide, and there are also pedagogical resources available to folks. Folks can also contribute directly in the story section by sharing their own personal relationship to Dominican music in the United States. And so this is a project that's ongoing. We're currently in the process of applying for another grant to try to make it a little more robust and interactive for folks to really engage with a lot of the audio and video recordings we have available, and also a digital archive of images and other ephemera related to the history of Dominican music in the United States.
You have 1 minute.
Okay, so let's go.
Question and answer will start.
Thank you,
you.
Professor Pathak. So let's go to the other slide quickly. So this is about the history of Dominican music. Come back to us so we can talk a little bit more about this. So this is the open educational resources. If you can copy the one that says for more lesson plans, Jhensen, that one has all the links to that page, and it's free of charge for educators. So we go to the other slide quickly. And we are doing this now with Samana archival documents. We found a suitcase with documents related to the African Americans who arrived in the Dominican Republic and Samana. It was Haiti during that time because Haiti was dominating the island. And they were calling free Blacks from all over because they were free in the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And this project is open source, is in JSTOR, and this community is able to look for their birth certificates, for marriage certificates, etc. And this is a way of us doing post-custodial digital archives. We didn't take any of these documents and brought it to the United States. We digitized them We made them available, but they're still in there. We bought boxes. We brought boxes to them. We got a grant from Salon to document this. And so we can continue with the other slide because I don't want to forget. So we have more digital sources. You can look into our webpage. We're working with the City College Digital Scholarship Services to have this open source and available for everybody. So the next slide, Jhensen. This is our publications. Jhensen is going to search in CUNY Academic Works, also open source, available to everybody. And the next slide. There you go. Thank you. And question.
So thank you, Professor Aponte and
Wonderful,
Professor
wonderful.
Ortíz for it's such a wonderful presentation. And I do have some questions, but I just want to give other people chance to ask question first. Okay, raise your hand and or you can just speak yourself. Anybody, any question?
And you can also open your cameras. I would love to see your beautiful faces.
Yeah. That's very important, please, if you can, but that's okay if you
No,
cannot.
of course. Ay, qué lindo, Isabel, gracias.
I don't really have a question. You always blow me away, Sarah, with the work that you do, Sarah. And sometimes I have these ideas that I can't even start, but I do actually have an idea of something I might want to do, maybe a collaboration. I don't have an institution really, but so here's a thought. Here's an idea that has occurred to, I wasn't planning to say this.
Dale.
This is coming out. Like, I did my dissertation on Dominican women writers, and they're contemporary, and they're mostly in the United States, in some in New York, but all, in different places. And there's a lot of great like YouTube videos where somebody's interviewing them. And I'm always thought it'd be great to put that together into like a little library. But I've never started it. So I'm going to say publicly here, it's an idea that I have, and I don't know if UMass could partner with you, but that's one idea I have.
I love it. Yes, let's talk about this. Absolutely. Making it available, organize this information for others.
Yeah.
And making sure that people know that Dominicans write and write well and publish. Claro, Isabel. Okay. Lo tenemos que hablar. Qué gusto, gracias.
It's a great idea. Yeah, I'm on board as well.
Yeah.
Any other question before I ask mine?
And we have your dissertation, Isabel, in the library.
Yeah. Hi, it's Michael Kahn. I had a question. I was wondering if you would consider down the road, just curious, like a map internationally of Dominicans spread throughout the world, and maybe in that type of thing. Just curious.
Claro que sí, Michael. Absolutely. We're trying to do it locally, but yes, it definitely is something that is in our mind, mapping all the Dominican diasporic communities throughout the world. Thank you. Yeah.
Anybody else? I
have one question. I'm in 24, I'm going to be teaching a course about different library resources at our community college. And I wondered, would it be possible for the students to actually come and visit your institute and
absolutely
do some on-hands work? Would that be?
Yes.
We
didn't talk about that, but we do have educational workshops. And Nelson Santana, the one that you see right there, Professor Santana, used to teach these classes with us. Now Jhensen is doing it. And we bring even people from the community, even people from elementary schools, high schools, and also CUNY students. So yes, let's talk about that, and we can customize the presentation geared to their needs of the students.
Thank you.
No, gracias.
Anybody else? All right, I have a question, two questions. How this not related to open resource source, but for the special collection Dominican studies that you have at City College, for collection development purposes, how liberal the college is to giving you fund? Because I usually have such a hard time finding my, my own funding for the collection development, always budget issue. So how much, compared to other subject they allocate for collection development that? And the second is, have you considered talking with some kind of partnership with the Queen's College's Library Sciences School to offer some kind of short course on Dominican study archive and Latino like that?
Thank you. Excellent question. Thank you so much. Okay, so the first question, and Jhensen can also chip in. We are 95% of our collection is donated. So we do not have funding for that. Mainly people want to bring their sources, their publications to us because we take care of them, we preserve them, and we make them available. So we do have a very small amount dedicated for getting books. So that's the way it has been grown by donations. And the other question, Jhensen, you can also add at the end. Yes, we are behind these people for a long time. And Nilda Sanchez Rodriguez, who is right there, she's taking a class, and we're talking about partnership. We want them. We have in the past interns from that program. I came from that program. Jhensen also, Nilda. So we want to go back, and we want to see more people like us. I want to hear more people with my accent, in those working with those collections. Yes, because this is it needs to be more open. So yes, they wrote to me, and I guess to many of you who came from that program, that they were doing a survey. So immediately I took advantage and I wrote to them. I said, we're here. We want to collaborate with you. And they said they were going to talk to the chair, but I haven't heard back from them. But yes, we want to do something more formal and institutionalized.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jhensen?
Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I was just going to mention, I've been invited to give a similar presentation like the one we just did today to groups of students in the library and science program at Queen's College. So that's something that's we're open to hearing from them, having more sort of concrete conversations in terms of collaboration moving forward. I know Professor Jonathan Thayer, who was my professor in the archives concentration in the program, has reached out to me with the possibility of having interns again come in for a semester or two to work in the archives. So there's something that's in the works. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Only 1 minute remaining. Any other last minute question? Yes,
Neil.
Isabel has question. Isabel, go ahead.
So when you said that you rely on donations, that reminds me of just a question that I have about archives, because I'm not an archivist, but I know sometimes these institutions give millions of dollars for the papers of so-and-so or the papers of so-and-so, and they should be giving money to the Dominican community who are giving their papers. The people who give these papers should get something, even though I know what you're saying. They give it to you because you are honoring their papers, but it's just something I've been noticing, because like here we sometimes spend a lot of money to get somebody's papers, and it's never a Dominican.
I know, we need to work
millions
on
of
that.
dollars.
Isabel, ¿qué pasa, right? And the thing is that what we do, we have a very strong college work study program. So we do not have a big backlog. We try to digitize these documents. We try to organize this documentation. So scholars and everyone have access to them. And then these community members can come back and say, oh, how nice, people are using this. And they come and they write articles, chapters, everything related to our collections. So yeah, that's a conversation that we should have.
Well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. And I guess my host, my colleague, Professor Polger, want to say the final word.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both. Thank you, Sarah and Jhensen, for presenting an excellent presentation. It was just a lot to take in and a lot to learn. And I think that's the whole point of professional development, to learn. And for making these things freely available is so important. So we want to thank you for this very valuable presentation. There's so much, I mean, I didn't even know this. So this is wonderful. Again, learning new things every day is so important. So thank you both for this awesome presentation.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Gracias a todos.
Okay.
Nos vemos pronto.
And of course, and thank you all for attending this presentation. And on to our next presentation is going to be at 12:30. I'm so screwed up on the time. I'm in a different time zone. So yeah, just check your Zoom meeting links. And thank you for attending this year's Institute. And I hope you're all enjoying the presentations. They're all really wonderful learning experiences. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
May
you.
God bless.
And Mark is one of our next presenters. So yeah.
Qué bueno.
Oh, thank you.